back to another episode of After the Whistle. I'm Aaron McClory.
And I'm Kevin Lepper.
And we're happy to have you here. Let's get right into it. The Grand Valley State football team lost its 5th game of the year on Saturday on a last-second Hail Mary to the Ashland Eagles, losing by a score of 20-17. Cole Katopka returned to the field and had a decent outing, throwing for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns while rushing for another 48. Even with Tyler Bradfield posting 17 tackles for the Grand Valley State defense, along with them holding Ashland to 0 points in the first 3 quarters, they surrendered 245 yards in the game and 20 points alone in the 4th quarter, including a 28-yard touchdown run, a 44-yard touchdown run, and then the 53-yard Hail Mary that ultimately ended the game. And then broadcaster Steve Lloyd-Jones on the Hail Mary, he's the announcer for 96.1 ESPN, he called the Hail Mary, and the sound clip of it was so unenthusiastic that the call went viral and was featured on the Twitter pages of both Barstool Sports and College Football. With this loss, the Lakers fall to 4-1 on the season and return to Lubber Stadium on Saturday, October 12th. Their rival with GLIAC rival Saginaw Valley State kicks off at 7 p.m. The Grand Valley State soccer team won their only game of the season this week, defeating the Davenport Panthers at the GVSU soccer field 7-0. Ava Cook and Gianna Parlove each scored twice in the first 45 minutes, while Olivia Trombley, Chantel Carranza, and Brooke Russell each found the back of the net in the second half. Grand Valley State soccer improves to 7-1 on the year and will look to pick up 2 more wins this week. They play Parkside on Friday, October 11th at 7 o'clock, before traveling to Purdue Northwest to take on the Pride 2 days later.
Finally, the GVSU volleyball team went 2-0 in their home GLIAC matchups this week, beating Purdue Northwest on Friday 3-0 and beating Parkside on Saturday 3-0. Friday's game saw the Lakers win each set by 9 points or more, as Allie Thompson led all players with 8 kills and 2 aces, while Jaylee Primus posted 4 blocks. It was more of the same on Saturday as Grand Valley ravaged the Rangers. This time, Kendall Yerkes led the team with 4 aces, and Rachel Jacquet posted a game-high 37 assists. After the week, GVSU volleyball improves to 7-8 on the year and look to get above 500 this week as they have home matchups against 2 more GLIAC foes. They will face Ferris State on October 11th at 7 p.m. before facing Northwood at 4 p.m. on October 12th.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for Grand Valley State Sports this week. This has been Aaron McClory.
And Kevin Lepper.
All game, all season, always on After the Whistle.
Hey, and welcome to Caught Looking, the weekly baseball segment here on After the Whistle. I'm Aaron Poling.
Joe Belansky.
Let's hop right into it. So we're going to start with the first game of the day, which was Houston and Tampa Bay, which as of this recording just wrapped up with Tampa Bay winning 10-3.
Yep.
Give me some of your thoughts, especially with what you saw with Houston's when they ran the first 2 pitchers out versus Tampa Bay's top 2. What do you think?
Yeah, obviously it seemed like after Verlander and Garrett Cole going, it seemed like that series was over. They were both just pitching dominant. Verlander, I think, hit another career milestone. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he just continues to produce. So when that Houston rotation is clicking, obviously the bats are there too for that to be a complete team.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of looked like at times it looked like Tampa just didn't have enough gas, but they would just hang around and just not fight. So it wasn't so much that like they lost some of those games, like they didn't have it. And in playoff baseball, obviously bats go silent, and it's a very up and down type of game. So when you're facing pitchers like that, there's nothing you can do. So obviously Tampa, as of this recording, just won to stay alive 2-1. I don't think this series is going to go further than Game 4 though.
Yeah, Houston's clearly the better team. Tampa Bay is a great story. They just don't have the top end talent that Houston has. Houston has Justin Verlander, Garrett Cole, Zach Greinke, and that's a top 3 in any rotation that can lead you in the playoffs, especially when you need to win 3 games for the DS. And you have those 3 going with Garrett Cole and Verlander already winning. It's going to be hard for them to come back, especially knowing that you have Verlander coming Game 5, and we all know Verlander's history. One thing I also want to touch on is Houston's pitching coach deserves a lot of credit for this. If you think about the last when Garrett Cole and Verlander both came to Houston, they were both probably ERAs in the 4.5, and then suddenly they come to Houston their pitching coach gets a hold of them, and now they're back to being dominant.
I mean, and I don't necessarily disagree with that, but also sometimes just that change of scenery as well. Going to a place where you feel wanted could sometimes also be enough to hit that reset button. But yeah, it does seem like since both of those players had gotten there, they've gotten better. Even though we already knew they were pretty damn
And
good.
Verlander was already a borderline Hall of Famer before he got there. Let's move on to Minnesota and New York. This series is 2-0 with New York crushing Minnesota the first two games. Give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like Minnesota really wants to play baseball. Here they finally make it to the playoffs in a handful of years. They've been shooting themselves in the foot by putting that like games on like MLB TV and stuff like that. Not everybody gets that. It's not readily available, so I haven't been able to catch any of their games. But I believe that tonight they're finally on like FS1. I know Severino's supposed to take the mound. That's going to be tough. I don't know. Can Minnesota play in Spider enough? I just haven't seen anything. I think New York just takes care of it tonight. Those bats, and you have Severino on the mound, and it's just not Minnesota's year.
Yeah, Minnesota was one of the teams that we talked about that was breaking the power records, but their power is pretty much evaporated since the playoffs have started. Obviously, the Yankees pitchers have been a little better than we thought they were going to be, and they're holding them in check. Especially if you hold them in check in Yankee Stadium, it's gonna be tough. If you can't hit home runs out of Yankee Stadium, you're not hitting them out of Target Field, where the field just gets bigger, it gets colder, and the ball travels a lot less. Let's move on to Atlanta and St. Louis, with Atlanta up 2-0 on the series.
2-1.
2-1, my fault.
You're good.
And St. Louis is up 3-1 in Game 4 going on right now.
Yep, I believe they had Dakota Hudson on the mound for St. Louis. I can't remember who Atlanta had marched out there, but both teams, I mean, this is an awesome series. It's a shame that this is happening in a first-round situation because I'd love to see these teams play 7 games. This is one of the best division series that's going on right now, as far as I'm concerned, and evenly matched, and managers having to get creative with how they want to use their bullpen and stuff like that. Hopefully Atlanta's able to kind of close it out tonight. I believe they're in Busch Stadium. My brother-in-law's there. He just had to send me a picture because, of course, he did. Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully Atlanta can finish this out. But I think even if it were to go to a Game 5, you can only figure that they would throw Wainwright out there for St. Louis, and you'd put Keuchel out there. Obviously, again, another ground ball pitcher. So it's tough. These two teams, both offensively and defensively, are just clicking. And like I said, it's a shame that this is happening in the first round.
Yeah, I'd love to see it go 7, but I'm excited. Hopefully, as a fan, I hope that St. Louis wins tonight so we can see Game 5.
Yeah.
But I do think when you get down to, I think St. Louis has the advantage with Wainwright going over Keuchel. I don't know what it is about Adam Wainwright in his career. He could be having the absolute worst season, but when it comes postseason time, he's kind of like Madison Bumgarner of the Giants. He just clicks in and he's unhittable.
Yeah, he knows when to show up, and obviously, with where you have Wainwright, who's going to be more of like a power guy looking to get strikeouts. If you have if Keuchel's out there and he's not able to get the ground balls, they're going to get to him early, and it's just going to be a disaster for Atlanta if they have to turn over that bullpen, and if Keuchel's only able to go, say, 2 innings.
Yeah. So let's move on to the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Washington Nationals. It's 2-1 right now. I think a lot of people expect the Dodgers to sweep the Nationals, but the Nationals, give them credit, they eked one out on the road, and that's kind of what you have to do to win a series like this. You have to at least win one game on the road. So tonight they have Max Scherzer going versus Rich Hill, which Max Scherzer is obviously the dominant pitcher of the Nationals.
He'd be the favorable in that scenario.
Yeah, but Rich Hill is a super underrated pitcher. A couple years ago, he had Cy Young. He was a Cy Young candidate. He knows how to get outs, and he knows how to get big outs in the playoffs. What do you think about this game, especially with the way that both offenses have kind of been stymied a little bit?
Yeah, it is kind of amazing to see the bats of LA kind of get silenced to a degree. Obviously, you have a lot of power guys. You have guys who, when they're hot, they just go on a tear, whether that be, Justin Turner, Cody Bellinger, Max Muncy, guys who have the ability to hit. So this LA team is dangerous, and give Washington credit coming into this series with momentum, obviously having the wild card win, crazy victory over Milwaukee, that comeback, win. So I I don't think Washington is there yet. Obviously, Juan Soto has kind of developed and turned out, and there's talk about giving Anthony Rendon the extension if you want him to kind of be your cornerstone. But outside of, Scherzer and even Strasburg's hit or miss, there needs to be improvements done to that rotation, as crazy as that sounds, and that bullpen. So I just don't think that there's enough power there to keep up with Washington. But it's a step in the right direction for the post-Bryce era.
Yeah, I was going to say, with Bryce Harper gone, not many people thought they were going to be here. Max Scherzer, Steven Strasburg is a good one, too. But then once you get into the 3 games, if you don't win both those games, you're kind of in trouble.
Yeah. Was it Patrick Corbin?
Yeah, Patrick Corbin, yeah.
So, and he didn't do great. I mean, they're back in the friendly confines. You just kind of hope that Washington can get some magic together again, and those rally caps will work for them, and they're able to send this thing to a Game 5. But I just think that the firepower there for Los Angeles, if it does get to a Game 5, I don't think Washington's going to be able to overcome it. I think if Los Angeles were to get eliminated in this round, that'd be considered a pretty big upset. I think most people have the Dodgers as their NL favorite.
Yeah, I'd consider it a major upset.
So we'll see kind of how that unfolds as the playoffs continue.
Yeah, we'll be back next week with the conclusion of the DS series, and then we'll give you a preview of the NLCS and the ALCS. That's all the time we have. I'm Aaron Poling.
Joe Blansky.
And for now, you've been caught looking.
Week of unnecessary roughness. I'm Joe Blansky.
And I'm Aaron McClory.
There's some football to talk about.
That we do.
So we'll lead off, obviously, NFC North. Regional. We'll start with my Chicago Bears. Obviously, they traveled to London to play the Oakland Raiders. You had this whole narrative of this Khalil Mack revenge game. Kind of left that sour taste in his mouth. He thought he was going to be a Raider for his whole career, and we did not get that. It was not good. I mean, You can't tout this defense and how dominant, and then give up a 97-yard game-winning drive at the end of the game when you miraculously had gotten yourself back into the game and the lead. You can't have that happen. So, if anything, the offense without Trubisky, the offense is fine. What happened with the offense was kind of what I thought was going to be. It's going to be some slow stuff like that. Chase Daniel is good. There's a reason that he's been a career backup. You know what I'm saying? So. The offensive line was bad too. They were shooting themselves in the foot, a lot of false start and holding penalties, and that was something they were kind of really supposed to shore up this offseason was that offensive line. They give Cody Whitehair, their center of the future, more money to be that staple, and that seems to be one of the weakest parts of this entire team, right? Because they claim they want to be like a running team, right? Well, they haven't gotten that identity because they haven't had the play from their line to give them that opportunity. So it's whatever. They head into the bye. Obviously, that puts them at 3-2, tied for second, I guess,
I
in
think
the
that's
North, or
tied
third?
for third technically because the Lions tie in the bye. That's just
Okay,
messing with the percentages.
But nonetheless, it kind of really – you don't want to go into the bye 3-2, but they definitely needed it because they just didn't look like themselves. I guess Nagy had not gotten the team to England as soon as the Raiders did, where the Raiders were there for about a week. The Bears were only there for a couple of days, day and a half. So they even kind of look lethargic and just that time difference. And so it's good that they're able to go into the bye, get the necessary people healthy, and just kind of get ready and refine that identity. I think that week off will do them good, but it's not how you want to head into the bye.
And one thing I really don't like about what the Bears are doing is, and you alluded to this with the offensive line play earlier, but the run game, they touted David Montgomery as like, oh yeah, we got the second best running back in the draft behind Josh Jacobs. And it was something like 11 carries for 43 yards yesterday, and that's just been a theme the entire season. They've been hyping up David Montgomery, you're going to ground and pound in your face, and it's just been a whole lot of nothing from the running game.
Which, yeah, and that was the whole offseason was really they were kind of boasting this run DMC, they were calling it, this whole trio with Mike Davis bringing him in from Seattle, obviously Tariq Cohen still, and then Montgomery. And they traded away Jordan Howard to essentially draft Montgomery, which I kind of think they're somewhat of a similar style of player. Obviously, Montgomery's going to be cheaper as a rookie. But, yeah, we just haven't seen what is supposed to be a strength of this team. We just haven't seen it. Now, Montgomery they gave him the ball in a couple key short down situations where he is able to hit you in the mouth and run over you and pick up them first downs. But we're not seeing this kind of explosive sort of spread type offense, all this action out of the backfield with Montgomery and Cohen that we were told we were supposed to see. We're just not seeing that yet.
One thing, Allen Robinson, he looked pretty good yesterday, though.
Wide receiver number 1.
That's true, number 1, too. And he looked a lot better than he has with Trubisky, like, at least in my opinion. Like, there's been a lot of just disappearing from Robinson in certain games.
And, I mean, the tough thing is, obviously, Taylor Gabriel was out as well, where he can kind of be a slot, kind of more gadgety guy. So that, it doesn't surprise me that, you have a backup, and he's going to kind of lean on that number 1 guy. And whether people agree or not, I think that Allen Robinson is a good wide receiver number 1. And hopefully, with that last performance, he's able to kind of convince people and show what we know he's capable of.
For sure, I agree with that, because ever since that 2015 or 2016 where he went for like 1,500 yards, 14 touchdowns, he's never really gotten that mojo back. Like, he's looked good in certain games, but it hasn't been as consistent.
Well, and he blew out his knee too, because that was when the Bears had first gotten him. He was recovering from the ACL.
Oh yeah,
so,
and that was the year with Jacksonville, where Jacksonville killed everybody, even without Robinson.
Yeah, so realistically, this is also like year 2 for Robinson in Nagy's system. So, like I said, it's kind of a perfect time for a bye, because it seemed like they kind of started to lose themselves a little bit, and that game didn't go how they would have liked it. I'm sure, obviously, you always want the win, but there's just X's and O's stuff too that needs to be fixed coming out of the bye.
For sure. And also, Akeem Hicks, did he end up coming? I saw he went out injured. Did he end up coming back in the game?
He didn't. It was something with his elbow. I don't remember exactly what the initial reports was. And granted, anytime there's an injury and you slow it down, it's going to look bad. But it didn't look good. Again, I don't know if there's been an official word. I'm guessing like it had to have been some sort of dislocation of the elbow or something, because however like the movement goes, and then you just seen the skin and you just seen the pop.
Man.
So I don't know if it was a tendon or actual bone or what, but I got to think that it's going to be sidelining him for a while, which stinks, because Akeem Hicks is one of the better personalities in football, obviously from a skill level, and he's just a good dude. And again, he's just got a personality, so you'd like to have him out there, but again, we'll see what happens coming out of the bye.
He was a joy to watch Monday night mic'd up against the Redskins, and it's probably a big reason why Josh Jacobs was gashing the Bears the way they were, or the way he was, because Akeem Hicks wasn't up there shoring up the middle.
Yeah, he's just a great personality, and like I said, you lose to the Raiders, it's whatever, you go all that far, but another team that didn't disappoint out of the NFC North, depending on who you root for, would be the Green Bay Packers. Yesterday we had that kind of primetime little teaser for Sunday Night Football, that nice 4 o'clock game. We had Green Bay, Dallas, who many thought would be a favorite in the NFC, right? They shored up that offensive line. They got Zeke back. They added Randall Cobb in the offseason. You still have Amari Cooper, and obviously that defense. And Green Bay just kind of stymied them. I don't want to call Green Bay the real deal just yet, but it was definitely a statement performance against a team many felt was number 1 in the entire conference.
Oh, for sure. And then it didn't really help with Ray Lewis's comments before the game saying the Packers don't have a leader in their front 7. Then Zadarius Smith, he just went off on that Cowboys O-line. I think 2 sacks, 3 tackles, a whole bunch of pressures. Jair Alexander, who a lot of people were saying best corner in the NFC North, he actually got burnt a few times by Amari Cooper. But other than that, the Cowboys could not get anything going. Like Amari Cooper, he was doing Amari Cooper things, exactly what you'd expect from a 4th overall pick at wide receiver. But other than that, you just saw Zeke wasn't doing much of anything. Dak threw 3 interceptions, and then the Cowboys couldn't stop the run on the other side either.
Yeah, and it was weird too, because it looked like, okay, maybe Dallas was going to be able to kind of march back into this and kind of bring it close, but they were just never really able to get that separation to realistically close that gap and put themselves in the game. Like, even though the score was getting closer, it was one of those things where, like an eye test type deal, they weren't in the game. Like, they just got dismantled.
Oh, yeah.
And the strengths of what their team was supposed to be, they got exposed in all those strengths.
Oh, yeah, because coming into the game, a whole lot of the narrative was the Packers can't stop the run, and then the Cowboys are going to jam it down your throat like Zeke, boom, this offensive line's going to destroy you. And then Zeke, it's really been all year he hasn't been right, but this game it truly got exposed, and the Cowboys, you don't want to say they got blown out of the water with a 34-24 final score, but you're right. With the eye test, they were never in this game. Oh.
Yeah, and especially, too, like being in the division that Dallas is, this loss isn't necessarily detrimental to them, but I definitely think that this kind of game definitely sends you to look in the mirror and see what this team's supposed to be.
Absolutely. So hopefully, for their sake, they can improve on this season.
Yeah, but like I said, being in the NFC East, there's not much competition there other than Philadelphia, which I'm still not sold on. So Dallas's playoff dreams are still alive, but last night was not a good look for them.
That's very true. And then Dak Prescott wanting $40 million a year, that's looking like a real questionable ask from Dak after 3 interceptions against a Packers defense that some people still have questions about, but it looks a lot more improved this year.
Yeah, and then also another NFC team North that we had that was in action as well was the Minnesota Vikings. Now, obviously, you have some of the drama. We'll kind of keep this quick here because we're running out of time. But you have the drama of, against Chicago after that game. Thielen kind of calling out Kirk Cousins. Then you have Kirk Cousins going onto his podcast, whatever, doing an apology. Then you get rumors of Stephon Diggs trade requests, right? Horrible. He's just a dude, like you would have assumed he'd been a career-long Viking. But there was obviously kind of something going on with how this offensive system's been running, that they haven't really been throwing the ball when you have elite talent on the outside. So they played against the Giants. Obviously, it's a little bit of it's one of them things. There is no such thing as moral victories, but there is if you're the Minnesota Vikings and you play the New York Giants, because at least this kind of gives you can kind of right the ship with this win. Obviously, it's a decimated Giants team. Wayne Gallman went out, and then at one point they were down to their third-string running back. So Minnesota's got a lot of work to do. I still don't think that they're out of this conference, the division in the North. But there's a lot of work to be done, and I don't know. Kirk Cousins definitely doesn't help, but I don't know if he's the sole person to pin this on.
Oh, yeah. I'm not here saying Kirk Cousins is an all-pro quarterback by any means, but Cousins isn't as big of an issue as people think. Like, obviously, he got the ball to Adam Thielen enough yesterday. 7 catches, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. So when Cousins isn't making mistakes, like egregious ones like he was against the Packers, like I think he went 13 of 32 that game, outside of just that one, maybe 2 games a year Cousins does that, I don't think he's as big of an issue as people might think. It's more of a coaching thing, designing plays.
Yeah, and they did bring in a new offensive mind in the offseason. His name is slipping my memory, but nonetheless, like I said, I don't think this team's over, but the pieces are there for there to be. There's really no kind of excuse for the way that we've seen them perform in some of these games this year, because you have elite talent on the outside, and Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. Again, one of the better tight ends when he's healthy with Kyle Rudolph, and you have one of the better running backs in the league when he's healthy, and Dalvin Cook. Now, obviously, that offensive line hasn't been good, but you also have an elite defense, right? So the Minnesota Vikings is a team that should be in conversations with some of these other NFC powerhouse type teams, and they're just not. But they'll take the win, and then I believe it's like a 3-way tie for like second or third, right? I believe Green Bay holds sole possession of the North, so.
That Lions tie just messed up all the things with the standings here.
It's going to continue. That's definitely
all season long.
That's definitely a killer. It's going to be fun to sort of navigate how that math is going to end up working come the end of the season when it matters and we're trying to figure out wild card and division winners.
And it's going to either it's actually going to affect the Lions. That tie is actually going to matter in some way just because of how it happens with Detroit every year.
Y'all are going to miss like a playoff game by like half a game.
Or we're going to get like home field advantage because of the tie or some crap like that, even if we lose week 17.
Yeah, something's goofy, but that's Detroit for you. And that's all the time that we have today, unfortunately, on Unnecessary Roughness. I've been Joe Belansky.
And this is Aaron McClory.
And we'll see you next week.
What is going on, GVTV? Welcome back to another episode of 10-Minute Misconduct after the Whistles hockey segment. I'm Kevin Lepper.
And I'm Aaron Poling.
All right, let's get started with the Red Wings here. First 2 games in the Steve Yzerman era. The first 2 wins of the season. Wings are 2-0 so far. Good hockey being played, but it's that first line that's doing all the work. You got Tyler Bertuzzi, Dylan Larkin, Anthony Mantha. Anthony Mantha scoring all 4 goals in the Wings win against Dallas yesterday. you know, it's a good line, but a hockey team can't just be their first line. You know, you got to have all 4 lines going every night. But hey, they've been getting the job done the past couple games here. So what are you thinking about that line so far?
The Red Wings go as that line goes. In the first period of the game in Dallas, they started off a little slowly, and you could kind of tell Dallas carried the play a little bit. But when they got their legs going and they started to dominate the game, for no better terms, you could start to see the Red Wings start to carry the play. It carried over into line 2 instead of having to get the puck out of their zone on the change. They'd change and they'd go forecheck, which is really the strength of the game for Filppula and Nielsen. Really strong forecheck, and they started creating chances. Same with Glendening and Ernie and I can't think of his other name. The same with the fourth line with Abdicator, Helm, and Glendening.
Yep.
They started to get a forecheck going, and Abdicator ended up getting 3 shots on goal. Christopher N was who I was thinking.
Oh, yeah.
When they started getting down into forechecking, that's when those lines are going to be successful. They can't carry the puck up the ice, get around people, skate around people, and create chances that way. They're going to have to create turnovers, and that's going to lead to shots, which leads to dime in the offensive zone, which leads to penalties. Because they drew 8 penalties last night, which is quite a bit. The only thing is, though, is you need to capitalize on the power play.
1 for 8.
1 for 8, yeah.
Not great, but hey, we'll take the win. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to catch a whole lot of either games. I had a busy weekend, but they playing good? Do they seem solid so far? I mean, they're coming off a win against Nashville and Dallas, both 2 pretty good hockey teams. You know, I don't think a lot of people were expecting them to get these wins, so it's a surprise to see them win. But what do you think? They got to build off of this, keep this momentum
They
going?
have to build off this. These are 2 of the best teams in the West. They caught a little bit of a break with both teams coming off of back-to-back games, playing their backups, which the 2 starting goalies for Nashville and Dallas, respectively, are probably Vezina candidates with Ben Bishop, Pecorine.
For sure.
And you can tell there's a little bit of a drop-off between Pecorine and Yari Saros, and then Ben Bishop and Antti and Kaboden. Just even in the second goal that Mantha scored against Dallas, Ben Bishop's 6'8", so it's not going to be as easy to do the move around the pad of the goal and tap it in. Ben Bishop is a bigger goalie, and that may have affected it, but you got to beat who's in front of you. So it's not a knock on the Wings. It's just you beat who's in front of you, and maybe they'll start playing the starters. They're going to probably get John Gibson from Anaheim on Tuesday, and that's going to be a real good test of their offense.
Yeah. It's been kind of in their favor to have both backups playing these couple games, so that's probably definitely played a part in it. But I think if they can, you know, get all 4 lines going, carry this momentum with them, I think, hot take here, that they could potentially secure that last wild card spot when the time comes. If they can keep the momentum going, keep playing smart, you know, limit those turnovers in their own zone. Maybe a little more solid defense to help out Howard and Bernier in net, but I'd like to see them make the playoffs, and I think it's definitely possible if they keep working for it, you know, play smarter, and just, you know, win these games.
Well, the key to making the playoffs, especially with how tight every year the wild card is you got to start fast, and they have started fast.
So far, so good. Moving on to the rest of the league, a couple games. Last week, we previewed the Washington Capitals-St. Louis Blues game. The past 2 Stanley Cup champions. Washington won that game in overtime. Aaron, what did you think about that one?
So Washington didn't look like they were ready to start. St. Louis jumped all over them in the first 2 periods, scored 2 goals. They were up 2-0, and then kind of thinking they were just going to run away and hide with it. But Alexander Ovechkin, give him credit, comes back, fakes a shot. You got to respect the shot. So when any goalie goes down, goalie went down, Ovechkin shot it around him. So it kind of started a rally. They came back, tied it, and won it in overtime.
Definitely. Who scored the overtime winner? Do you know?
Oh, I can't remember.
Was it Vrana? I think.
Yeah, that sounds
right.
Was
it? Yeah. I didn't catch that game, but I heard about it. So another one game that happened was the Carolina Hurricanes came back on the Washington Capitals. Carolina's first place in the league right now. They're 3-0, I believe. Is that surprising to you?
It's not. After the playoffs they had last year, where they beat the Caps in 7, it's not surprising. The only thing that I worry about is them trading away 2 of their best defensemen this offseason, and how well is Jake Gardner going to fit into their system. So Jake Gardner scored the OT winner on Friday night, so he's fitting in well now, but how's he going to fit in over 82 games when teams start to play them the second time they haven't figured out?
Do you think that they're going to be able to have that same success they did this year like they did last year in the playoffs?
I think they will.
You think so?
I think so. I think all of their young, like Andrei Svechnikov, the Red Wings, the Griffins winger's brother, he's for real. He's got another year under his belt, so he now knows how to play in the NHL. He also knows not to fight Ovechkin. He kind of got knocked out in the playoffs last year. But everyone's 1 year better. I'm expecting a big season out of Peter Mrazek.
Former Wings goalie, obviously.
When he's on. You can't beat him. But the only problem is if he does not stay on and he gets into a little bit of a rut.
Inconsistencies can really hurt him if he's not,
And the Hurricanes aren't supremely talented on offense. They need him to be consistent.
I think they're an incredibly fun hockey team to watch, though.
They are. The Surge is great.
Oh, I love the Surge. A lot of people, some people not as big of a fan as it. I think it's all just good.
I love the jerks.
It's just good fun, yeah. Don Cherry with the whole jerks thing.
Another game I want to get to was another one we previewed about last Wednesday was the Vegas Golden Knights and the San Jose Sharks. They've played twice this season.
And Vegas has won both times.
Vegas has spanked them both times. Vegas looks good.
I think so. I a little bit of a biased Knights fan, but I think it's good to see. San Jose, they played another game after that. I don't remember against who, but I believe they are 0-3 on the season.
Correct.
They're going to have to work to get out of that rut they're in right now, because that is not the way you want to start off a season, especially not a team like San Jose, who's known for being a pretty good, solid hockey team. But they're off to a slow start, so it's going to be interesting to see if they can pick it back up.
Another team that's on a slow start I want to touch on is Dallas. Obviously, the Red Wings played them. They beat them in the final minute of the game, but they're 0-3-0 right now. They don't have a win on the season. Not a lot of people have expected that, especially when you have Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn, Jordy Benn. They're going to be a really good team, especially with Ben Bishop in the back end. And Nico Hirscher is going to probably take another step, and he's going to become an elite defender in the next 3 or 4 years. Look out for him. But Dallas is on a slow start, so we'll see. I think they're going to pick it up eventually. They're just too talented not to be a good team.
It's been an interesting start to the new season. That's all the time we got on 10 Minute Misconduct. We'll see you next week.